joined by Jonathan Williams, president of the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC.org. Hello, Jonathan. How are you today?
Well, I am doing great, my friend, and we've got some fun things moving in Washington this week, but also some great things at ALEC.
Yeah, we will catch up on the budget bill when it gets over more hurdles. I want to find out about your new task force you have launched over at the American Legislative Exchange Council. Nonpartisan, been around for a long time. They do great stuff. You are starting a task force to look into voting, into process and procedures on election integrity. Tell us about it.
Well, it's a really exciting day here at ALEC. And just on Friday, our board of directors got together and authorized the creation of this new task force to really look at what are the protections at the heart of our constitutional republic. And, that the idea is that American citizens should be in charge to decide the fate of our elections. And this is a common sense American belief with 80 or 90% of support. And in fact, you have to kind of scratch your head once in a while to wonder who are those 10% of Americans that don't believe in citizen only voting. But this is something that our legislators at ALEC came to us and said we would be remiss as an organization of state legislators if it didn't tackle this crisis and confidence around our elections. And what can we do at the state level to empower our ALEC legislators to lead the way when it comes to restoring that American confidence in elections?
Now, process and procedure are two words that mean a lot of different things, but in the context of elections, they mean to me transparency and reliability. I voted in California between 1989 and 2015. And, the vote goes on for months in California because votes can arrive maybe 10 days after an election if they're postmarked, and overseas votes. And they change all the time, and they count sometimes and other times they don't count. And then in Florida, they're done in about 3 hours. Why is that?
Well, they learned their lesson in Florida, right? I mean, you had Jeb Bush and some great folks come in to say we can't really repeat this mistake again that we saw that took us forever to figure out who had won. And I think that's the key element is states like Florida have been leading the way on election integrity and better processes when it comes to finding results right away. One of the things that ALEC has been working on for a while is raising awareness around the problems with things like ranked choice voting and why it takes some of these cities like New York City a couple of months to figure out who actually won. Look at items like that. Look at items like common sense issues to say only American citizens should vote. I know we chatted about that maybe last year when Glenn Youngkin was looking to make sure that reform was made in Virginia. So we're talking about some very common sense 80 or 90% issues that should be something that Republicans, Democrats, independents, libertarians, vegetarians, everybody can get behind.
Well, I'm not sure about vegetarians. They might want, I don't know. I won't speak for them, but I do, because ALEC is a supporter of mine and of the program, they sent me the data. 73% of registered voters believe mail-in ballots should arrive by Election Day. 75%, that's 3 out of 4, that's way up there, support requiring photo ID to vote, and 84% want states to routinely remove deceased, relocated, or non-citizens from the voter rolls. Jonathan, after I left California, I got votes delivered to my old house for at least 2 cycles. It's ridiculous.
Well, there's so many examples of that. And it's not just Chicago, where they still have dead people likely voting from past elections. But I mean, this is something that everyone has a personal example. They know they've heard from a neighbor or a friend that things need to be tightened up. And this should not be a partisan issue. This should be an issue of not who wins, but how we go about choosing that so Americans across the board can have real confidence again in the integrity of the election process.
Well, I salute ALEC for touching the third rail. Lots of people on the left go crazy when you talk about voter ID. I don't know why. We show ID whenever we travel. I just got my new super duper ID. That means I don't have to take my passport with me to go, on a 1 hour puddle jumper. Now my real ID works. So I don't understand why anyone would object to voter ID. Have you ever had it explained to you why?
Well, it's all about political talking points of the progressive left. And for some reason, they don't want people to show ID. And I haven't figured it out myself, but it's been something we at ALEC and our members have been attacked at really for years. And has made no sense whatsoever since when you board a plane or go to the store and buy products of adult age, you have to show ID. And that's something that should be done at the very least for elections.
Now, one other model act that you folks came up with that I don't have the details on in my background memo, the School Board Election Date Act. You do model policies. So ALEC will produce model laws, much like the ALI, American Law Institute, will do stuff on torts. And ALEC does stuff on all sorts of different things. Why a model law on School Board Election Date Act? What's that all about?
Well, this is something that's pretty common sense in that we ought to have elections be on election day, right? And not voting for months before the election like we see in some states now, Hugh. Election day ought to mean something, and especially when it comes to high profile school board races or even bond elections. That's something that those that want to have really low turnout to benefit their cause, whether that is increasing local debt with bond elections or maybe electing these left-wing folks to school boards across the country because they can rely on a motivated turnout base, let's say, of the teachers unions. That's a real problem for Americans. And so having a consensus and high turnout elections where we decide not just president of the United States and Congress and state legislature, but involving all these important issues at the local level, whether that is school board elections or whether that's bond elections. This ought to be decided by a large number of people, not a very small number of people that are turned out, let's say, by the teachers unions.
Your wonderful team sent me a note about the fact that you also had worked to keep politics out of pension elections, along with the model policy. So you're doing cleanup voting at every level for all elections with common sense. I can't believe anyone opposes you on this, Jonathan. Are you getting blowback on it?
Well, I'm sure we will from the usual haters out there, but that's okay because we have the American people on our side and we have the truth on our side. And this is something that should be done across the country, as you mentioned, Hugh, at all levels of government. It's obviously the state and local responsibility of elections. And that's why I think ALEC is such an important voice on this with our trusted policy solutions that our legislators are so excited to go take. This isn't the first time we've talked about these issues. We've been staunch defenders of the electoral college against the onslaught of this national popular vote compact that's been pushed by progressives. We've been defending against ranked choice voting, supporting citizens only voting, and we're really excited to go even further and talk about some of these common sense reforms in states all across the country.
ALEC is where people go to get common sense update on common sense resolutions to problems that plague all 50 states. But federalism is a laboratory experiment. 50 different laboratories. If you want to find out about the state of the states, sign up for the ALEC newsletter, alec.org/Hugh. You'll get it once a week. Now, Jonathan, I want to close by asking, if states improve their voting laws, will they move up in rich states, poor states.org? I'm always trying to figure out the inside baseball to give Ohio a little bit of the edge to overcome your state up north bias. Is this going to figure out there too?
Well, I don't know about that, but I think stay tuned because we'll be likely developing some election integrity rankings that we can use, and we'll see how Ohio comes out. Maybe we'll fare better than in rich states, poor states versus Michigan.
I do think people would like to know how you would rank states. California will be last. I am absolutely sure, although ranked choice voting in Maine drives my in-laws crazy. Jonathan, as a general matter, last quick question. Do you hate ranked choice voting as much as I do?
Well, it's a horrible idea. Even if you believe in a theoretical context of it, it doesn't work in practice because you have no idea who wins for the longest time, right? And this is maybe one way that we'll rank the states is, do you know your results on election night or don't you? Is it going to take you weeks or months to know the result? It's difficult enough trying to follow some of these long ballots in states across the country, let alone ranked choice voting. And, it's a confusing thing, Hugh.
What is the theory behind it? Why do people support ranked choice voting except to confuse electorates?
I don't know. It's never been explained to me all that clearly as to why individuals support it. I really don't know. I haven't heard that in a coherent way. To me, it's exactly the same problem I think that you have with it. It's just awfully confusing. If elections aren't confusing enough for some Americans, I think this makes it even more so. And then, of course, we don't get timely election results, which is a major problem.
Jonathan Williams, always a pleasure. Follow Jonathan on X at Tax Economist. And I remind you, the American Legislative Exchange Council, if you're a state legislator or married to one, have them join ALEC. They're smart people doing smart stuff on behalf of everyone. They're nonpartisan. They're just a group of smart people taking the best that the states have to offer. Sign up for the State of the States newsletter at alec.org/Hugh.